Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissheit, licensed clinical social worker. So very glad you are joining us, and we're always glad to have people come on to share with us updates that we need to know about things that are happening in the community, things that they are seeing with regards to getting people help, especially when it comes to a crisis. Welcome in, Leilani Brunet. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. And so a lot of people can't say where you work, but I can. It's South Central Louisiana Human Services Authority.
Yes, name about that long.
Yeah. So, and we call it SLASA. It's just one of those things, makes it a
Yeah.
little bit easier. But you guys are really on the forefront of seeing some of the challenges with both people who have mental health issues and people who have substance abuse issues.
That's right.
And one of those things that we're really kind of dealing with as a large scale in the community is this fentanyl issue.
That's right, and it's a very serious issue. It's a huge problem, and right out the gate, I always like to start off by saying that I realize there's going to be individuals out there watching this segment and dealing with this either personally or a loved one that has it. It's a very, very sensitive topic, but I always like to start off with just saying that there is definitely hope for these individuals. Our agency has several individuals that are our peer support specialists that are walking, talking testimonials that can come alongside of individuals like this. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but I do like to start off by saying that initially because it is such a sensitive topic.
Yeah. So there's hope and there's help.
There's definitely hope and there's definitely help. Yes,
Yeah.
we have the help.
Okay. And so let's talk about your role over at South Central, if you
Sure,
don't mind,
yes.
and what that is and what you do, just so people get a better idea and understanding of you.
Sure. So I'm a registered nurse,
Right.
and I work for South Central in the capacity of I'm a community outreach coordinator for the Louisiana State Opioid Response. And I've been doing that for 3 years now. We do a lot of education in the community. We do everywhere from a summer camp for kids to our law enforcement officers, our first responders. We provide a nasal Narcan for our first responders and make sure they're all equipped with that.
Yeah.
So,
and we've talked to some of them directly about what you've provided
yeah.
and helped with that. And I've gotten a chance to get educated from your team
good.
as well. And
Good.
so y'all do a great deal across the board. Let's talk a little bit about this fentanyl and what it does and how it affects people.
Okay, well, I have a slide, so we'll go to that first slide because I want to talk a little bit about what is fentanyl, first of all. Fentanyl is, when we talk about pharmaceutical fentanyl, we're talking about a synthetic opioid that's actually been around for about 60 years, and it's used to treat severe pain. It is one of the most potent opioids we have, and it's really about 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine and 50 times more potent than heroin. So it's very high risk for diversion, very high risk for overdose, and there's various formulations of it. But the problem that we're seeing right now with fentanyl overdoses is really coming from the illicit fentanyl, from the illegal fentanyl, and that's got heroin-like effects. It's powder, it can be dropped on a blotter paper, it's pressed into fake pills, mixed with other drugs, and it's basically poisoning. You're poisoning individuals that are using this because many of them are not looking for fentanyl. They're being sold this without their knowledge.
And so it very often, the problem that we see is when it's mixed in and somebody's not aware that
Yes.
they're taking it.
Yes. No, I'm not going to say no one looks for fentanyl, but
Right.
you're not going to really find anybody looking for fentanyl. It finds them in things that they've purchased that they thought was something else. Like they actually have these pill presses that make it look legitimate, like it looks like pharmaceutical grade pills, and it's pressed fentanyl. Very toxic.
Wow. And so is it because there's a big market for it, or how is it that fentanyl's out as an issue so much? I guess, if we figured out why that is.
Well, it's highly, highly addictive,
Right.
but it's also cheap to make. Very,
Okay.
very
So
cheap
that's
to
where
make.
that's where we found the big issue
Yeah.
with it.
And,
Okay.
and we have an outbreak right now. Obviously, in our nation, we have an outbreak, but this is not the first time we've seen an outbreak. There have been outbreaks in years past. One lasted 2 years in 1979, and
wow.
about 2 years, but it stayed localized. It stayed localized to a single city or like an urban market. But the current one that we're in right now, this has been going on over 6 years and is growing. It's spreading across entire states. It's imported from China, Mexico, and sadly, it can be obtained online. Now, I don't know much about the dark web. I won't even pretend to know much about the dark web, but you can point and click and get a hold of things now that wasn't possible in 79, 80, 90. And so it's not even considered yet, as bad as it is, it's not even considered yet, quote, a national problem because it's concentrated in areas like Appalachia, New England, and starting to see some early indications in the West as well. And carfentanil, that's one of the most toxic opioids. We hadn't seen a whole lot of that in our areas, but New Orleans just had a couple of cases where it was reported they had carfentanil, and that's actually like a tranquilizer for large animals, elephants, hippopotamus, things like that. And it's very, very 100 times more potent than fentanyl, and that's being found. In other words, if you had 4 grains of this stuff, like 4 grains of salt, and you touched it, that could be a life-threatening situation right there.
And so that's one of the other things that really impacts some of the people that are out trying to help, trying to make a difference, them being able to glove and just being very careful about that in the community.
Yeah.
And so we got just about a minute left here in this particular segment. So I didn't know if you wanted to kind of, where you wanted to lead us with
well, I just wanted to say that the addictive potential is very, very high. Look at 10 grams. 10 grams of this stuff is equal to 2 tablespoons of powder, which can be about 5 to 10,000 doses. And so smuggling-wise, it could easily move through a letter if it's moved right. The analogs are circumventing our controls, so the new chemicals may not even be able to be detected by the equipment at points of entry, and our canines may not even be able to detect it anymore because the chemicals are new. They may need to be trained. And the Louisiana State Police Bureau of Investigations reported that 49 grams was seized in 2014, whereas 3.6 kilograms was seized in 2020. So we have a huge problem.
So it really, really is a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
oh, yeah.
Leilani, we appreciate you being able to come on and tell us a little bit about fentanyl, tell us a little bit about the history,
yes,
and more importantly about the current crisis that we're experiencing.
Yes.
And so we'll get a chance to talk about this a little bit more, but we certainly appreciate your time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, that'll do it for this edition of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. More local programming when we continue.